back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. And I hope everybody can hear me all right, because we've started up a little differently in a bit of a new location as we are sorting out some of the technical aspects of the computer world here and trying to sort things out. So I'm not at my usual desk. But that said, we are carrying on regardless. There's a little bit of background going on, but hopefully it's not going to change anything for us. So with all of that, welcome to all of you. I hope you're having a wonderful evening and are ready for a very interesting little bit of a live that went in a way I didn't quite anticipate. I made the decision that I was going to do one thing, and as it turned out, there was a certain amount of rabbit holing that went on, which proved to be quite interesting, and hopefully it will bring something interesting to the live in that regard. So as we get going, I'm going to wait for a couple more people to join in. I hope you're all having a fabulous evening and are ready for something interesting. Danso, welcome. I hope you're having a good evening and that you're suitably ready for something weird and wonderful. So the idea for tonight was to do a bit of a deeper dive into some of the stranger books, the darker and more horrific and more interesting of the books. But what turned up that I didn't expect was what is considered to be a truly terrifying or horrific book, or deeply evil book in a great many ways, is not the books you might actually think. And before we get into the main topic, which I think is going to be an interesting one, I thought we'd gloss over some of what turned up, as it's just very, very interesting in terms of a lot of things. And in many ways, strange as it may sound, it seems that by and large what makes something truly awful is politics. Certainly something I hadn't expected, and given the nature of what turned up, it kind of shows how politics can turn back on itself regardless of. But with that all said, welcome to you all. I hope you're having a great evening, as I say, and I'm going to run through the rules of the channel very, very quickly, which is to say that on this channel we insist on only one thing, and that is to say, don't be rude. We've got a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions, religions, cultures, and all the rest of it on the channel, and we are in no way either promoting nor deriding any of what we discover. We do it purely for the interest's sake and for the fact that it is suitably weird and wonderful. And therefore, we encourage you to have an opinion and to comment it greatly as well. But with all of that said, we do ask that you are not rude. And if you are rude in that way, we are going to boot you from the live, because we don't allow rudeness. You can disagree politely, but we do encourage your agreement or disagreement, your comments, your opinions, and all of that. And of course, like, share, subscribe, do all of the good things, because we do this channel for you guys, and it is you that make it possible. You support it and keep it going. So with that all said, let's get into it. As I say, the idea was to find the most deeply disturbing books and talk about them and why they are as bad as they are. But what turned up was not what I expected. And the first list of books that are considered to be truly disturbing is a series of titles you might not have expected. They include on their list things like American Psycho, which apparently was a truly terrifying and awful book. One which was banned in many countries was number 2 on my list. These aren't in any particular order, I'm just going through them. Believe it or not, George Orwell's 1984, and entirely banned for political reasons of all things, would you believe? Apparently it's considered subversive. Right up after it at number 3 by William Golding, Lord of the Flies. An interesting fact that both these books speak to human society, and what I find really interesting about it is that almost everything that was kind of predicted in 1984 and in Lord of the Flies have all come true, which sort of tells you everything, doesn't it? Endless Thoughts, welcome. I hope you're having an absolutely fabulous evening and are in fine form. If you would like to join as a guest, you are more than welcome. I will drop you an invite in case you do. So yeah, the top 3 books on the list, apparently deeply subversive, but nevertheless, I found them pretty damn good. The next one is one I haven't read, and therefore, of course, is jumping onto my list of truly awful books that should never be read and have been banned by many countries. A Story of Yesterday by Sergio Cobo, followed hard on its heels by one which is an absolute favorite of mine, A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. Another one which I found very interesting as a choice of dark and subversive is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, of all things. I don't know if any of you have actually read any of these. Do let me know. I'd be very interested to hear. And huge thoughts. Can't speak this evening, it seems. Huge thanks to Endless Thoughts for those very kind gifts. That was really awesome of you. Jumped straight on and sent us all the love in the world, which is amazing. I do appreciate that greatly. The next one, which is truly dark, I'm absolutely going to agree that it's a hard read. Not because it is subversive in any manner or form, interestingly enough, but because it covers a subject that is really heart-rending and very broken in many ways. Dave Pilser's A Child Called It. Absolutely terrifying read and not an easy one at all. So I can see why that's on the list. So yeah, thank you for the sharing of the live there, Endless Thoughts. I appreciate it. And we've hit our live goal thanks to her. Thank you so much. The next one on the list of truly dark and subversive books really gave me quite the giggle, because at number 8 we have the Holy Bible. Who would have thought it? Apparently, it is one of those books that will negatively affect society. Do give your opinions on that. I would find that massively interesting. The next one is one which was actually quite popular for quite a long time in the book scene, by Margaret Atwood, A Handmaid's Tale. I can't recall it ever being that subversive or dark, but nevertheless, there was... Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of why they would put it on the list, but on the list it is. Next up is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. A little bit subversive, I suppose. Not terribly. Then they include, for its truly awful horror factor, a book which, I think it's one of those books which absolutely has managed to capture the imaginations of a huge number of people, and absolutely does count as a quite dark read. Of course, Stephen King's It, and it's inspired so many other horror stories. I can see why that managed to get in. Then you've got Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Definitely a political one, that one. Quite dark. The next one was a book which, I will be honest with you, I will read anything if challenged by and large, and I have read so many books. And this was one which I wouldn't have chosen myself to read. I was encouraged very much to read by a friend of mine, and having read the entire series, because I said I would, I regret every page. It was a truly awful read. I wouldn't call it dark, certainly slightly distasteful, but I just didn't like it. And that was by V.C. Andrews, Flowers in the Attic. It was a truly awfully written book. I didn't like it. But I wouldn't call it dark in that regard. Maybe it was, who's to say? Then another one I haven't read, Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. And then, believe it or not, the one which surprised me as well was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Who would have thought? Now, the next one on the list, yes. This was quite creepy. It was a very dark sort of, I want to almost say Gothic style crime novel by Patrick Süskind. Very, very well written. Perfume. Brilliant, brilliant story. Well worth a read. Next up, by George Orwell again, A Man with Two on the list. Who would have thought that? Animal Farm. Thank you to Endless Thoughts for that amazing set of gifts. That is truly kind of you. I am very, very impressed with your kindness today. Thank you so much. Then another one that I haven't read, I do need to, I think. We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. Then Stephen King, another man who has very dark horror. And his second time on this list, Misery. Very, very good. Then you have Elie Wiesel's Night. Look, I can absolutely see why this is considered to be one of the darkest books. Ellie was, of course, in the concentration camps, and this is her account. And Night is a heartrending read in a great, great many ways. So yes, I can see why that was chosen. The next one, actually, I really, really enjoyed, but I enjoy all of his books. Chuck Palahniuk, a brilliant writer, very funny, but yeah, very dark, I suppose. And his book, Haunted. definitely, if you're into the dark, but why it would be considered subversive, I'm not sure. Another one for Stephen King, 3 on the list, The Shining. Yeah, that was creepy beyond creepy. So no surprises there. Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I haven't read that one. But the next one is absolutely a politically motivated no-no. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Another one that has become prophetic in hindsight. A truly terrifying reality. It's not the book, it's the people, my friends. But yes, and huge thanks there to Endless Thoughts. Live goals reached. Wow, I'm impressed. The next one is actually a book I really enjoyed by Alice Sebold. A lovely story, and I don't know why they put it on the list, but The Lovely Bones. A good story. The next one is definitely a politically dodgy book, so I can see why it's on the list, and a lot of people would not like it. Of course, it is by Franz Kafka, The Metamorphosis. So yeah, followed hard on its heels by a suitably subtly political commentary, I suppose, In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. Yeah, definitely. So a good collection of books I didn't expect to be said to be banned, oddly enough, but nevertheless considered in many places to be subversive and bad, apparently. But we were wanting to talk about darkly evil books, and the ones that were truly considered evil. I'm sure you're thinking of books of demonic source and all the rest, but no. Again, it is the socio-political commentaries that are considered to be the darkest and the evilest. Who would have thought? Top of the list, unsurprisingly, because everybody seems to be against the poor lad. Despite the fact of, as we found, in fact, he was a bit of a lightweight in many ways compared to others. Certainly he wasn't a good lad in any manner or form, but there were far worse who are not blamed for it, which always amuses me how history decides what you should say. And I've just noticed something. We have managed to hit our live goal twice in a row. Good Lord. Endless Thoughts, you are very kind. But yes, top of the list, of course, is Mein Kampf by good old Adolf, written in the 1920s, an autobiographical manifesto with the core ideology and plans for the expansion of the Nazi regime. The foundational text thereof that directly, they say, inspired the Holocaust and World War II, resulting in the murder of millions. That's a very insightful comment. I think that in many ways that's a politically motivated description of the whole thing. First of all, it was World War II. They were at war. And to place all the blame entirely on Adolf is probably untrue. I think that there are a lot more people who must take at least part of the blame. And a lot of people who did far worse during the war, as we have seen in previous lives. Nevertheless, in direct contrast to good old Mein Kampf is the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. intended to inspire a classless utopia. It is the ideological route for the communist regimes of the 20th century, and the implementation by leaders like Lenin, Stalin, and Mao led to the deaths of an estimated 100 million people through violence, purges, and state-induced famines. I find it very, very interesting that when they spoke of the Nazi book, it was the murder of millions. Now it is merely the deaths of millions, as if somehow, because it's communism, it's better. So I'm going to throw it out there that both those books should be on the list, but there's a certain amount of politics behind the descriptions. The next one is absolutely a true one for the list. The Hammer of Witches by Heinrich Kramer and Jakob Sprenger, the famed Malleus Maleficarium, published in 1486, a very misogynistic text, which was a guidebook for identifying, hunting, and prosecuting witches, the justification for the torture and murder of tens of thousands of women across Europe in the early modern period. Now, here I would say that the use of the word murder is absolutely accurate, because by and large this was entirely done for reasons of money and politics, and rarely, if ever, had anything to do with witchcraft at all. So absolutely true. Now the next one is a very controversial one, because according to what they say here, this was in fact a forgery. However, I know people who claim that it was not, so you will have to maintain your own opinion in this regard. But the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, an infamous and damaged anti-Semitic forgery published in Russia in 1903, falsely claimed to be the minutes of a secret meeting of Jewish leaders planning global dominion, fueling anti-Semitism, and contributing to pogroms and the rise of Nazism. How much of that is true, I don't know. I have read the book. It is absolutely anti-Semitic. It's overly and violently Semitic, which would promote anti-Semitism, I would say, would be a better description. Did the secret meeting ever happen? Not sure. But of course, this immediately counteracts the argument that Mein Kampf was the one that started it, because this now says this is the one that started it and blames it on Russia anyway. So you may make your own decision in that regard. The next one is almost amusing in its choice. The Descent of Man by Charles Darwin. The idea of the evolution of human society, which they say gave rise to the eugenics movement. Darwin himself made some rankings of race, and later figures used his work to advocate for the weeding out of the unfit and the justification of racial hierarchies and forced sterilization. I'm going to say that's a very motivated description. Yet again, I'm not sure how true we can call that. Certainly Darwin was a product of his time, and some of the views were based on what people of the time said. But whether or not you can actually go on and say this was the cause, I would have a hard time standing to. Nevertheless, the next one is another good one by none other than Vladimir Lenin himself, The State and Revolution. Building on Marx's ideas, Lenin outlined the necessity of violent revolution and the dictatorship of the proletariat. to achieve communism, and his work led to the establishment of the Soviet dictatorship and the murder of millions who resisted his regime. Now, with this said, how is it we always blame Adolf, but we never seem to blame Russia, where you've got 3 books on the list already? So, don't know. Interesting argument, depending on your politics. The next interesting one is by, in fact, a famous philosopher. A bit of a dark fellow. I've read a lot of his work when I studied philosophy, and he's absolutely a bit of a nut job, true. Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. And of course, the Nietzschean philosophy was absolutely, yes, let me accept you there you go. It was absolutely the basis for the idea of the development of the greater person. Now, they say it was co-opted by the Nazis to justify their worldview and pursuit of power through inhuman acts, but I would argue and say it was far more used by the communist regime, if anything. Well, who's to say? The next one is The Pivot of Civilization by Margaret Sanger, who, curiously enough, your comment is not wrong in a great many ways, because funnily enough, what everybody does forget was the sheer amount of good that Adolf did for Germany. Coming out of World War I, the sanctions imposed upon Germany by the Western states was little short of inhuman, and people were starving in the streets. There's a story told to me by a very old German that I know, who said his father went to the bank, sold his house, drew the money out, walked down the street, and was able to afford 1 pair of shoes with the money that he got for his house, which kind of implies that they were in a pretty bad way. And he fixed that. Adolf did. He did a lot of good for Germany. But it didn't fit the politics, you see. And of course, when war happened, what everybody forgets, they talk of war crimes. And I've always argued, much to the upset of a lot of people, that there's no such thing as a war crime, because once you have gotten to war, that is a crime in and of itself already. And you cannot talk of war crimes when war is the crime. So, yeah, to be fair, I don't like extremes. You know, I'm a person who is a great believer in balance. Either extreme is bad, for all the reasons. So yeah, and yeah, what's going on nowadays all over the world is pretty awful, and Germany is in severe difficulties at the moment. Agreed with that. You're not wrong at all, and the problem is very often that is the case, where some idiot in politics decides we shall get involved and be the hero, but of course it's not them doing the fighting, is it? It's the poor soldiers. And at the end of the day, I have serious issue. Also nowadays, and very interestingly enough, just to swerve off on another rabbit hole, technically war is impossible in the modern age, because it's no longer a case of us against them, because people have moved all over the world so much that the them are part of our society and our people are part of their society, and. So how do you fight a war against a country that's half filled with people that have nothing to do with it? It isn't really possible, which means that we can't have wars as we know wars to be. The only way forward, in many ways, is through urban guerrilla warfare, where you try and locate your targets and get them. And of course, you end up with the civilians caught in the middle. And we're seeing that. People are all worried about World War III at the moment, and I contend we're already waging it. We simply don't have an official statement of the fact, because we cannot go country to country, because by and large too many of everybody is in every country, making it impossible for have wars. What we really have is a kind of argument of ideology that is everywhere. And how do you fight that? If you think about it, technically, we are at war with a world war, and we just haven't managed to isolate a specific enemy. So, yeah, make of that as you will. The next interesting one, though, as I said, was Margaret Sanger's The Pivot of Civilization, the founder of Planned Parenthood. And what was really interesting is she, and she's a woman, advocated eugenics and birth control to prevent people who were defective or feeble-minded from reproducing. And her ideas were part of the wider eugenics movement, influencing the politics of the US. So there. In answer to that question, here's the problem. The Democrats, as they're called in America, are not democratic, which means that right from the start, you've got a problem. The Republicans, by and large, are Republican, at least. Which is better? From an outside point of view, I'm almost tempted to say neither. And it's become literally an argument about what badge you wear rather than what the actual policies are. It's become stupid. And what you really need, if they're going to do anything to fix the US, is have a third party and get rid of both of those. That would be my opinion. I think that it's come so far that they've forgotten what they are. The Democrats are absolutely, not even socialist, I'd say communist, and very clearly are not democratic, because if you argue against them instead of engaging in democratic discourse, as we have seen, they will attempt to kill you, as they did with Charlie Kirk. So immediately they are not democratic by any manner or form, and therefore their policies are a lie. Next up is that there are certain things which, whether or not you agree with them is irrelevant, are constitutional in American law. They are part of the absolute bedrock of Constitution, and they have not been changed, and therefore fighting against them in the non-proper arena is terrorism and should be stopped hard. That's the point of the Constitution. It is designed for discussion if it needs any amending. And it has been amended on more than one occasion when it was needed by the majority. And when minorities use violence to try and change it, then they are being terrorists. I'm sorry, whether it's domestic or foreign is irrelevant. That's the bottom line. So, yes, you're quite correct. Now, the next interesting one is one which I would put on this list because it's got nothing to do with politics and everything to do with the fact that it rather rather gave too much ability to people who probably shouldn't have it. And that was the famous Anarchist Cookbook by William Powell, published in 1971. The book is literally a cookbook, instructions for the manufacture of explosives, weaponry, and illicit drugs. And of course, is the absolute handbook for domestic terrorism and crime. So yeah, I can see why that would be on the list. It's a fascinating read, nevertheless. But yeah, definitely not a good book to have lying around. And the last one on the list is the Turner Diaries by William Luther Pierce, a novel, actually, that depicts a violent race war and is considered a foundational text for white supremacist movements, inspiring numerous real-world hate crimes and acts of terrorism in the United States, such as the Oklahoma City bombing. Well, I wonder if the problem is more the book or more the people. I'm definitely on the fence about some of them. But yeah, give your opinions in either way. We can absolutely say that a number of books are pretty bad. The Communist Manifesto definitely was used for all sorts of things. John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism was another one. But then Mill was a dodgy philosopher from the start anyway, and I'm going to argue it's not the philosophies but the people that use them. Spooky, you made it. Now you see right there we're in disagreement on the choice there, because mine to Endless Thoughts was neither. How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, while your choice is my second choice, my first choice is neither. You need a third party. I think both of them have gone so far off track that it's now more about which badge you wear and no longer about the politics in America.
A third party?
Yes.
A third system?
A third system, a completely different group that is neither one nor the other. So, yeah.
I mentioned that you need a leader.
Well,
because people are dumb.
People are dumb, and they do need a good leader. But they also need to get their head out of their arse and realize that they've gotten to a point where the argument is whether or not you are Democrat or Republican, and not about what actual policies either side is spewing. They've lost the plot. And maybe a third party that says, hey, screw everything, start again, and let's go back to what the point was in the beginning, maybe it will help.
I would say reduce the government and just try and focus on turning people into good people.
Yeah, that would be a good choice. So tonight we're talking about truly evil books, and as I mentioned in the beginning, not the ones you would think. I expected the ones that would hit the list would be things like dark demonic grimoires and all, which was sort of where I was going with the live. But as it turned out, the ones which are considered to be truly evil are very prosaic, normal books. Top of the list, Communist Manifesto. Would you put that on the list of the top 10 books that screwed up the world?
Top 10 list?
Yeah. Second on the top 10 list, John Stuart Mill's Utilitarianism.
Are we counting up or down?
Neither way. These are just the top 10 ones that were truly awful for the world in general.
Okay, so they're all the same
Yes.
level. There's not one worse than the other.
Well, I
Okay.
suppose you could try to argue, but you would really you would struggle to choose, I think. Interesting on the list, Charles Darwin's Descent of Man on evolution. Apparently, that was truly awful.
Okay.
I will
Charles
agree.
Darwin.
Yes, Darwin, the man that inspired
Okay.
most science. Then one which, look, he was an absolute
Well, he
nihilist.
destroyed religion.
Well, did he?
Well, lots of people
Ah,
forgot
people.
about.
You see, there you've hit the problem there. I wonder if it is the book or the people. People don't like to think. The next book is by Friedrich Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil. And while he was an absolute nihilist, I don't know if I would count it as a really awful book. I don't know. Lenin's State and Revolution? Fair. Sanger's Pivot of Civilization, that one just made me laugh because she was one of the top people on Planned Parenthood. And what I find really interesting is that she said anybody that is feeble-minded or degenerate or defective should be sterilized.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a bad book.
So,
There's a couple of books I can mention, but I haven't
well,
really read them.
keep them for the end, and we'll see if they're on this list. And if they're not, you can give them as well.
Okay.
So, Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler, of course, is on the list. Of course. What I found really interesting is they say that the communist one inspired the death of millions, but Hitler's one inspired the murder of millions. So you can see which way they're going in their politics right off in the choice of the words describing. I mean, I'm not saying it was a good book, but as you can imagine. Now, interestingly enough, Freud, The Future of Illusion. Now, Freud was somebody that directly attacked religion. And you said, yeah, Darwin was the chap that destroyed religion. No, I would say Freud, if anything, because he challenged automatically held beliefs. So there was that. Now, an interesting one, which I've not read, I don't know if you have, was Mead's Coming of Age in Samoa. And I would like to read, because it's all about the understandings of a young girl growing up in Polynesian Samoa. So interesting that it should be on there. Very philosophical, bit of a hard read, I would say. But one to remember, I think. And then Kinsey's Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, where it says that the problem was it removed the boundaries of human morality in sexuality. I argue that people never had them in real life anyway. It just was brought to light what people never believed. Would that stand as fair?
I don't know that.
But nevertheless, those are the top 10s. Which are the ones you would put on?
Well, people would probably disagree with me. The one would be the Quran.
Okay.
Yeah, like a few billion people would disagree with me, but I'm sure a few billion will agree with me.
Fair.
Yeah.
In one of my lists that I
And
went
I
through...
think there's one that you...
Go on.
Yeah, no, tell me about the list.
Well,
Because I don't think I was here.
in contrast to my earlier list that I went through, on it was the Bible. And probably for all the reasons that you might put the Quran.
Okay.
With fair historical justification. I mean, the
Well,
Crusades.
I would say that the Bible, you don't get radical Christians.
I will argue with that very hard. I am sorry. There we will fight to the death, because I have met so many personally.
Maybe in the 1800s, they would probably hang you.
I've known radical ones even today that have done pretty awful things.
Okay, but which one do you want to get approached by? A radical Christian or radical Islam?
Neither. I think radical anything is wrong. I am anti-radical religion of any variety.
Okay.
I
Well,
think...
I think the Christians are. I think it's good for people.
Oh, in its place and in its right balance, absolutely. Religion is, as we've discussed before on Alive, is absolutely necessary, in fact.
Otherwise, they'll go insane. They'll go woke and turn woke into a religion.
Absolutely true. Well, they are doing that already. That's also true. But there again, what you're seeing in many ways is the radicalization of a thing which shouldn't be radicalized. Religion is meant to be personal and in many ways heartfelt. It's not meant as a political tool. When it becomes so, that's when you have the problem. So, yeah, definitely an issue. And what I found most interesting about the list is that these books got on it at different times, and it shows the different politics swinging back and forth between fascism and Nazism, and communism and socialism. So it seems that our politics is not consistent. The one which they all, or the ones that they all agreed on, were the books that make you think, like Animal Farm in 1984 and Fahrenheit 451. They are consistently on every list, very, very interestingly, which tells you a great deal about the efforts of political leadership to manipulate the people. But, again, arguable. At the moment...
There's a couple of books. Well, I can't seem to find them. But it's books about destroying cultures. The one, I forgot what it's called. It's something about colonialism. How to colonize a people.
Not the one about the elders of Zion.
No.
Because that was absolutely all about that.
Okay.
Well, there's been a few, I would say, that have absolutely been about that kind of thing, some of which they say are fake ones that were planted in order to then publicly go against them and wipe out the people that were supposed to have written them but didn't. So, nah. But yes,
I'm sure there's lots of books that they are hiding away from you. That the globalists are probably hiding away from you.
absolutely. A perfect example of that, which is not political, which we did mention in the other list, was the Anarchist Cookbook. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Well, is it a cookbook?
Basically, it is a recipe book for how to make bombs, guns, drugs, and all the things you would need from general household objects in order to do domestic terrorism. That's what it is, bottom line. And it is banned for all that reason, and fairly, I think.
For terrorists.
Yes, that's literally what it is. And there's no two ways around it, you know, I mean...
They call that a cookbook.
Well, you use it to cook up things like fertilizer bombs and all the rest of that.
I mean, anybody would have probably picked that book up and thought they're going to go and
Oh, yes.
go and make a nice meal.
No, not for that, but a number of people have picked it up for what it is intended and have been caught trying it. Absolutely. There's been a number of criminal cases where the people caught used that book, without a doubt.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Alchemy.
Yeah, it's designed for no other reason than to cause as much chaos as possible.
Okay. Did you hear what happened in France? Or
When?
well, they're not going to celebrate Christmas and New Year's this year
Oh, okay, why not?
because of terrorism. People were planning to drive through crowds with bombs.
Oh, lovely.
They caught a few of them. I think they caught 6 or 8 of them.
Good Lord. Well, this is a thing which I said just before you came on, and I would love to hear your opinion. Okay. War as we know it isn't possible anymore. Okay. See, back in the day, it was my country against your country, and literally all your people were in your country, and when I invaded, I would have to come to your country to invade. That's how war worked, right? But in the modern age, the problem is everybody is everywhere.
Yeah.
So if I attack your country, then essentially a good 50% of the people there aren't your people. Some of them, quite realistically, are probably my people. So
Yes.
I can't do that. So war, as in armies going, are no longer possible. War is an unrealistic and impossible thing to do. You can't do it. Which means that the only way nowadays, and you may argue the point.
Mana enjoy music.
Hey, Candy.
Oyo muloko gwe. Tosobola. Aloga kumubuzi.
Dagwe tujoyinize.
Hello, Candy. Okay. That, ladies and gentlemen, was an example of what we would refer to as rudeness, where they came on just to disrupt, and therefore they got kicked off. Sorry. So, yes, so the only way to achieve war in the modern age is through acts of terrorism, where assumedly you would attempt to locate the key points of the enemy and attack those, but inevitably large quantities of civilians who have nothing to do with any of it are going to get hit in the process, which means that everybody's saying we're afraid World War III will start. My argument is it's already on and has been for some years. That's what it is. We just don't call it war because it's not me getting up my army and marching to your country. But it is.
Yeah. But missiles are still a thing. Hypersonic missiles are still a thing.
Oh, they are. Absolutely. We've got the weapons, but where are you going to aim them?
Well,
you see
you're
the
going to
problem.
threaten them first. You're going to threaten them. Like, you're going to tell them, give me what I want, or I'll blow up your cities. And then you'll
And
probably blow up
they'll...
a couple
Well, the problem
to show
is...
them that you're not messing around.
Fair argument, except the problem is in those cities are lots and lots and lots of people from everywhere else, including your own country.
Okay, well, if you look at last year and the year before, Israel was bombing Gaza, and they knew that Gaza had some of their hostages there.
Absolutely, but that's exactly my point. Inevitably, as we saw, the people who suffered in at least part were their own people. It wasn't a case of we're only getting the enemy type thing. You don't necessarily know who the enemy is. Let's hypothetically say South Africa decided to go to war against Great Britain. Hypothetically, okay. The problem is how
they
many...
want to go to war with someone. I'm not sure if you've heard all the stories that's happening.
Oh, yes,
and
I
all
have.
the comments.
I absolutely have.
Chased a couple of Americans away just in this week.
Yes, and
were
arrested the
trying to
Kenyans and there's rumblings from Trump as a result. But my point is that if we decided to go to war against Great Britain, how many South Africans are living in Great Britain?
There's a couple there.
Thousands and thousands. So immediately, as a general target, it's impossible without damaging our own people. You see where I'm getting at? So the threats are all very
No,
well.
not really.
Well, I suppose if you can... If you're willing to say, screw it, you went there, therefore you must live with what you've done, but that's
Well,
kind of
it
mercenary.
depends. Do they stand with South Africa or do they stand with Great Britain?
That's a wonderful question, actually, because how will you know? You can't really go around and take a census before embarking on a military campaign. The modern world is far more complicated. And the only people really who are going to get anywhere in a military fashion are those who we would generally call a little bit screwed in the head. Because
imagine South Africa going to war with Great Britain. The war would be over before it started.
yes, that is true, and for lots of other reasons. But that's besides the point.
South Africans are a bunch of retards, and
At the moment, yes. But I mean, the only people who really can make military threats properly are places like North Korea, where we know he will,
yeah,
because he doesn't care.
yeah, he doesn't care. I mean, he kills his own people.
Yeah, he's proved that if he says he'll do it, and to hell with everything. So,
I mean, under his leadership, there was already we looked at it the other day, and
Yes,
there was
we did.
millions of his own people that died.
yes,
Lots of them he slaughtered himself, and then others died of starvation and
exactly
illness.
that. So, my ultimate point is that war is no longer possible in the modern age.
Yeah.
It just isn't.
Well, everybody is also spying on each other. I mean, there are so
Oh,
many
yeah.
satellites in orbit. So If they want to, I'm pretty sure America knows exactly where Putin is, and they can take him out right now.
Oh, yes. I was remembering there was a comment made back in the day when we had an actual military, and they were talking about how there's no way you could manage to, I forget who was the flavor of the moment, but some political tyrant somewhere, and it would be impossible to stop him. And I was trained as a gunner back in the day, 12-7 Browning. I could hit a tent pole at 2Ks with at least 50 rounds, shooting at 850 rounds a minute. Now, if that is the case, if they had said to me, take out that bugger, I literally could have sat on a roof 2Ks away. They wouldn't even know I was there. And by the time they realized the guy was hit, I would have been gone. Which implies that when they say there's no ways they could have, I argue with you that I wasn't even a very good shot. Comparatively, if you got one of the really, really good sharpshooters out, absolutely they could have. Therefore, the reason he wasn't taken out was because nobody wanted him.
We live in a different age now.
I mean,
we live in the age of artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
People have automated drones.
Exactly.
That flies around.
So
detects faces and blow you up.
Exactly. So if somebody was that bad, they could manage to remove them. There's no question. And if they don't, it's because it's politically good not to.
Yeah, well, I've looked at some concepts to destroying leaders in Russia, where a ship comes down from space and it just releases a bunch of drones.
Yes.
Well, I mean, which just flies around super quick. Before you even notice them, you're dead.
Exactly. I mean, it's become somewhat laughable. So yeah, if you were to, you know how we characterize the Bronze Age and the Iron Age and so on and so forth. If I were to describe the current age, they like to call it the information age, but I would call it the age of paranoia. Quite frankly, yeah. The sheer amount of ever since the Cold War, the sheer amount of spying going on everybody and everything is unbelievable. It's gone out of...
We've got multiple people spying at us right now. It's TikTok, it's China, it's America, it's Google, it's
everything.
A lot of people are really listening to our conversation right now.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think all of that, at the end of the day, the problem is not the books, it's the people. But we wanted to go into real scary books. And mostly the occultic variety, because we are, after all, Strange Bones. And how bad are they? Because apparently they're not as bad as the politically ones we've just described. So, apparently. It's okay to summon demons as long as you have the right politics. That's the message I've learnt from this. Believe it or not.
Whose politics? The demon's politics.
I'm afraid to answer you because I'm not sure. As long as your politics is acceptable, you can summon whatever you like. Apparently. I don't know for sure, but we have some pretty scary books. And the first one up is the Orlinda book, which is famous because it was the most popular book for none other than Friedrich Himmler. Hello. Okay, again, these are just trolls. Sorry, so nobody else is going to be loud on the live tonight unless I actually know you by name. Because it appears we have trollage. Sorry, guys. Spooky and Endless obviously are very well known and they get to be here. But unless I know you, Charles. So, Friedrich Himmler, as we well know, was one of the top boys in the Nazi movement. So perhaps that might have some influence on why this is considered to be a very bad book. It was written in Old Frisian, actually, and contains records of events dating back 4 millennia and information about Atlantis. Now, most people thought it was actually a hoax, but no, not Friedrich Himmler, Heinrich Himmler, sorry, I do apologize. Himmler thought it was real and promoted it greatly. It was an occult book. Am I mad? Yes, I'm very mad when people come on Febribe and all I can hear is people shouting in the backgrounds and they don't engage or anything. Clearly it's there to be trollish. Sorry. A certain amount of respect is demanded. Our rule on the channel is don't be rude. So yes, I am zero tolerance on trolls, so that's my thing. Endless Thoughts, if you know them, let me know. Please do. Now, according to some, it was actually not as old as all that, but we don't know. It's a debated book. It was an occult book. But because of its use by the Nazis, it's considered to be a bad book that has a sinister agenda. So there's that. Now, the next one is definitely one that I would say very much fits on the list, and that's the Grand Grimoire, also known as the Grimoire of the Red Dragon, which was entirely designed for calling up very, very bad things. And in fact, it's still used by a number of people in Haitian voodoo, believe it or not. It got out to the French colonies somehow. It's also known as the Gospel of Satan, which might be another reason why it's considered to be very bad. Also, it's got a very large section on proper necromancy and the summoning of the dead. So yeah, I suppose we can count this as being a pretty awful book. According to rumor, though, if you have one of them, these original books, this one cannot be destroyed. Even if you set it alight, it won't burn. So they say. The last original copy is said to be in the Vatican archives, but then again, every book is said to be in the Vatican archives, so I suppose that's a matter of argument. Yes, you are alone in the comment section. That is rather sad. I shall comment to join you in the comment section because it's necessary. Ta-da! Even though I can't spell. The next one, which is another interesting one for terrible books, is the Rahone Codex. No one knows who wrote it, and it's written in an unknown language. It appeared in the 19th century in Hungary, and some think that it was actually a joke, that people did this. But the problem is, you see, paper and writing of books at this time would have been very, very expensive and very, very difficult. And the difficulty with saying it was just a joke is that would have been one hell of an expensive joke. You know what I'm saying? But they say that it's very, very evil because of reasons we don't know, because nobody can read it. It's a very mysterious book, and it appears to be written in Hungarian runes, which is interesting. But so they say one attempt came close to a translation, and if correct, this is a religious book. But we don't really know what it is. So why it's on here is anybody's guess. Hi to Za. Are you in fine and fabulous form? I hope that you are doing very, very well. The next one I have actually read, and is a very interesting book, and it comes from 18th century France. It's supposed to be influenced by Egypt. It's called The Black Pullet. The only survivor of an attack, a man nursed a Frenchman back to health inside a pyramid, where the old man kept ancient manuscripts, which he then passed on to the person he nursed back to health. And it comes from an idea that if you had this book, you would be able to call and control jinn, force people to speak the truth, and become incredibly rich. I've got to be honest, it's a bit of a weird one. The bits of it that I've read are strange. Does it work? I don't know.
Well, if it does, then I want it.
I'd like something that made me very, very rich. And Zah has vanished again. Bye. He's a very fast person to move. But yeah, I don't know why they say it's as bad as all that, unless it's because people think you shouldn't be controlling jinn. More it's about getting money, at least the bits of it that I read. I haven't actually tried any of it. Maybe I should have, and maybe I'd be rich. You
sell
can...
your soul.
I don't know. Maybe. You can read it online. So go look up The Black Pullet, and if you get fabulously rich, I'll know that it's good.
Okay, how do you spell it? Pullet.
So black, as in the color black, pullet as in a chicken, Pullet.
Okay.
Yes. So basically it's a black hen. A pullet is a small hen,
Okay.
insofar as it matters. Called that because it was like a sort of play on the idea of the goose that lays the golden egg. It's about money.
Just 1 second.
Okay, the next interesting one is the Munich Manual, written in Latin from the 15th century, also known as the Necromancer's Manual, because it focuses on demonology and necromancy, spells to create illusion, control others, see the future, and more. Very interesting, because almost all grimoires of the period include angelic folklore, but this one only deals with demons. It's very Christocentric in a way, in the way it works. It has reference to the Kabbalah and to all kinds of Christocentric type demonics. So, yeah, absolutely one for people intending to do bad things. Now, the next one, I don't know why they think it's bad at all, possibly because it's just non-Christian. Now, it's the Galdebrok, and it's Nordic magic. People say it's demonic, but there are no demons in Nordic magic, so that doesn't count. The spells are about healing or protection, mostly. It's a handbook for generalized folk magic from the Chthonic peoples, and that's about all. So why they would call it bad, I don't understand. I think that's by and large a load of rubbish. But there you go. Interesting, if nothing else. I would have put it with the severely cursed books, such as the Codex Gigas, which we have spoken of on many occasions, and the Book of Soiga, which is much the same. Again, it's one of the books that Edward Kelly and John Dee had, and it's all about controlling angels to make them do what you want, which I think is probably a bad thing. According to what history says, and you may make of this as you please, John Dee called up the archangel Uriel and asked if the book of Soiga was real, and Uriel said that it was, but that only the archangel Michael was authorized to translate the tables, but Michael did not do so for John Dee. The book of Soiga is complicated for two reasons. Firstly, it's made of a number of numeric tables that nobody knows what they do, which makes it weird to be on the cursed list for that, because if we don't know what it does, then what the hell. However, it is also known as the book that kills, because anybody that gets their hand on it will die within 2.5 years. And in fact, apparently, I don't know how true it is, this has always been the case. So if you want to die in 2.5 years, go and read the book. Otherwise, I would avoid it.
2.5 years. But what if you're suicidal and you get the book now, but in 2.5 years you feel like you don't want to die?
Well, then it's too late, isn't it? Bad luck for you, apparently. We do know that the whole idea of this book was in fact the basis for the novel, which was a damned good novel, if you like good fantasy, A Discovery of Witches by Harkness. A very, very, very good book. Great series. It's a trilogy. And it's on TV if you don't want to read and you want to rather watch, though the book was better than the TV. The TV thing was still great. So A Discovery of Witches, brilliant story, based on a cursed book. Then, of course, you've got the Book of Abramelin. It's one of those weird things that was supposed to have come from the ancient writings of the Middle East, but was probably written by some bugger in about the 15th century. It was not that great. I read parts of it. It was dumb. But it was one of the ones that was key in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Mathers absolutely worked on translating it into English. So it was big for them, and it was very important in the foundation of the occultic system of Aleister Crowley. So maybe it was important in that regard. I don't know. Then, besides that, one of the greatest ones, and really what inspired the idea for this live, was not the real ones so much as the ones which have caught the imagination. Far more than the obscure, it's the ones that are well known. Now, the Malleus Maleficarium was very, very real, of course. And it was not a grimoire. It was a book for Christians to slaughter those they said were witches. So absolutely yes, that one I'm going to throw up there. The Key of Solomon, both the lesser and the greater key, absolutely, and has inspired all sorts of people in both very bad ways and very good ways. So they fit to the list. But possibly the most famous of all comes out of Lovecraftian horror. Now, I don't know how much you know about Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft was the famous writer that wrote the Call of Cthulhu. He was the guy that really created the literary genre of cosmic horror. Cthulhu, of course, being one of the great outsiders that even the gods bound away. And the idea of things wanting to come through that merely knowing about could drive you insane. And yeah, he inspired incredible stories. I mean, he wrote a number himself, but he created a world which he encouraged others to expand on, and it developed and is growing even today in a great many ways, and continues to inspire. It's known because it's cosmic, not just localized. It works on the fear of the unknown. So Cthulhu, the great outsider, something somewhere between an alien and an evil god. And of course, the idea of the balance between sanity and insanity, and so on. Eldritch horrors, the great old ones, and more. Forbidden knowledge that absolutely will completely destroy you. And we know his own stories, the Call of Cthulhu and the Shadow of Innsmouth. We know a number of video games like Bloodborne and The Sinking City were inspired by his work, and even a number of mods for Skyrim, believe it or not, if you're into that. And of course, it created, along with the sort of stories and poetry of Edgar Allan Poe, a long list of people that were then affected by the genre. So, for example, Stephen King's It is a Lovecraftian horror. Stranger Things, the series, is a Lovecraftian horror. So Lovecraft created amazing things, but his greatest creation, arguably, is something that inspired so much fascination, so much attention, that in the modern age most people think it's real. And there's even been people who've attempted to make it real. And of course I am referring to the Necronomicon, a book that never existed. So how did that work? Well, it worked like this. The Lovecraftian gods are the great old ones, outer gods and elder gods and other beings, eldritch and alien, strange minds that are beyond our understanding. Cthulhu, of course, is one of them. Azathoth is another. They're not real. He invented all of it. The cultists in the books know dark magic and are able to do all kinds of things, such as summoning eldritch servants and more. And of course this really inspired people. The fact that he would use words or names for his creatures that were suitably scary just because they're so hard to pronounce, like Cthulhu. How do you pronounce it? There's argument even on that for reasons. And it makes it seem both fully alien and somehow more real. And that's the great thing about it. Now, according to the story, you have your Yog-Sothoth, Cthulhu, Avatharos, Nyarlathotep, and other such gods with these strange names, things that inspire and terrify. The Shoggoths and the Starspawn and the varying horrors that might be out there. But the Necronomicon was, to me at least, and I think a lot would agree, his greatest creation. It was based on ideas and tropes from several other things, but it never actually existed. But it went to the point that there was a guy that snuck his way in to the Library of Congress and planted a library card into the library card system. This was all pre-computers, okay? So that it looked like there was a hidden copy in the locked section that normal people couldn't go in. It never was there. It was said, like some books really have been, to be bound in human skin. And the awful face on the cover moves and the eyes blink. And there's been a whole ton of artists who are interested in the dark Gothic horror who have actually made artwork pages of these books. And they are really beautiful, terrifying but beautiful. But he even made an entire history for it. So H.P. Lovecraft made it in 1922 as a thing in his novel, The Call of Cthulhu. But the author which he attributed it to was the mad Arab Abdul al-Hazred. It was known as the Al-Azif, which means the sound of insects. And it is supposed to contain forbidden lore, incantations to summon the great old ones, histories of the entities, and rituals that will drive readers insane. The central iconic artifact in the entire Lovecraft mythos, representing forbidden knowledge and the insignificance of humanity in a vast and terrifying cosmos. And of course, this absolutely took off. None of it is real. I'm saying that over and over again because a lot of people really do believe it is. It was said to be translated from the Arabic into the Greek by Theodorus Philetas, and then into Latin by Olatus Wormius. It is absolutely the kind of thing that has been added to over and over again. So even what Lovecraft said it was has now grown way beyond. There are apparently, according to library cards and entries, but aren't really, copies in various libraries, including Harvard, the British Museum, and in the Paris Museum. But it doesn't exist, despite that. But it's interesting. With all of that said, we see then that the Necronomicon has become way more than just a meme. And it ranks as the greatest evil book ever simply because it only exists in your head, and the whole point of it was madness, which is really, really, really cool. Lovecraft said that the title came to him in a dream. So whether or not that's true, that's what he said. Some have said no, that it came from all sorts of other sources that reference, but I don't know. He said that it comes from the Greek language because nekros is Greek for dead, as we know, and nomos is law, and akon is image. So literally, the book means the book of the laws of the dead, or the book of dead names, or the book of dead laws. So Necronomicon, which absolutely is brilliant as a title. It is a terrible and forbidden book. Most of these things, as Lovecraft then actually said in an interview, do not exist. There never was an Abdul al-Hazared or a Necronomicon, for I invented both myself. We know that the idea of Ludwig Prynne and his Der Vermis Mysterius was invented by Robert Bloch, and the Book of Eibon was invented by Clark Ashton Smith. Robert E. Howard is responsible for the Unersprechlichen Kulten, unspeakable cults if you don't speak German. You should, Endless Thoughts. So the really, really good ones, the really, truly dark and horrific books in our history don't actually exist at all, which tells you a great deal about the human mind and the fascination that we have with the horrific. It speaks far less about the writings and far more about what we think they are. And that is what's important. And the reason it's important, strangely enough, goes back, if you will, to the other books that were not occultic and were on our list of truly evil books. Because that speaks far more to the mind of man than it does to the books themselves. And perhaps that's something that is a lesson to us, given kindly by H.P. Lovecraft himself. I don't know. What do you think? Spooky? Do you have a comment there?
No.
Are you debating whether or not I'm right? I don't know. It seems very interesting that when I looked up truly evil books, I got none of these and all of the political ones. It says a lot about people in general. But, well, who's to say?
So what we're hoping to find?
Well, I was expecting or hoping to find ones which really are quite creepy and terrifying. Books that really are bound in human skin, and they do exist. There are several. I was curious to see what really dangerous and terrifying books might be out there. And none of them made it to the actual list at all, which is sort of strange. And the fact that the books of magic considered to be the worst are none of the ones that are real shows that our imagination is far more important than any reality we might ever think?
Well, there's a bunch of recent books which I think are extremely evil, and they are children books.
Oh, yes. You're talking about the ones where they're teaching you all about being a transsexual and why mommy is a daddy now.
Yes.
I've
But
read
it's
one or
okay
two.
if you want to wear a dress, and we can help you to cut off your dick.
You know, I can honestly tell you that when you make your politics my child's problem, reason takes a back seat. Just be warned. That's my only answer.
Well, well, those are really evil books.
I would agree with that. I find in general that the darker the cover and the more outrageous its claims, the less evil a book is. It's the quiet ones with pretty colors that tell you how good it is that I'm afraid of, because then I start arguing, what are you hiding? And what am I missing?
Yeah.
Because clearly there's more to it. Is it true? I don't know. Let me know what you think. But
No, I think
absolutely,
it's those rainbow books. The one
yeah,
is full of color. They are the evil ones.
they do make me quite scared. Now we've got,
Why do you need to teach children anything about gender at such a young age?
you don't. Quite frankly, you don't. And when you use my child to push your politics, and I don't care what politics it is, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, I will still give you a damn good kicking.
No, but the people doing it, they are all pedophiles.
Oh, of course it is. I mean, it's without a question. So, yeah, and that is all I've got on evil books, really. We will have to come back with a completely different topic for Monday. I'm looking at, let's see, what have we got on our list? Zodiacs sounds good. What do you think? Zodiacs, does it sound reasonable?
It sounds very good because I've got no idea even what
Well,
it is and what it really means. I know people also always ask me, "What's your zodiac sign?" I've
right?
got no idea.
I've got to be honest, I know a reasonable amount because I knew, well, I still know people that are very big into it. I have never gone into it myself in any way, but I am absolutely more than willing to give it a bash and see what we can come up with and ask a few pertinent questions, I think, as well.
Yeah. So maybe you can tell me what my zodiac sign is
Well,
and what it means.
we will do all of that because the answer might be multiple things. I see Flavia says, hey, does anybody know Flavia? No,
Uh,
no. Unfortunately, you have to be a friend of the channel to be allowed onto multi-guest, Flavia. No offense to you. Because we get a huge number of trolls. We've even had 3 tonight. And no offense to you, but we are careful because sometimes they can be immensely rude. So we do try at least to protect those on. And the last time we had a troll on, they were harassing Endless Thoughts and Mickey, and that was not acceptable at all. We remember the time we had somebody come on having sex? That was pretty awful. So we are very careful. But yes, I will find out, and I will see if I can work out where you fall in your zodiac or zodiacs, because as it seems there are multiple types in the future, and we will do what we can for that. But that's us for now. We are done with today, and we will come back with more. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it fun. I hope you found it educational. It's been very quiet of late. I think Christmas is kicking in, which says a great deal. But we shall see where it goes. I did notice that a couple of people have gone and looked at the older ones on YouTube, amazingly enough. Finally, somebody's gone and looked. I don't know who. If it was one of you, let me know, because I'm curious. But other than that, do I allow any age in your conversation? No, 18 and up. Sorry, say that again, Spooky.
I was talking about your YouTube channel. I was on your YouTube channel a few weeks ago. Probably
Okay.
like 2 months ago or something.
Did you look at more
But I
than
just
one
quickly
video?
scrolled through it. No, I just quickly scrolled through it and saw that you were behind a few days.
Yes, but somebody's gone and watched all of them. I don't know who. I wondered who it was. Flavia, is absolutely okay that you're 19. But we are also done for tonight. So we will be back again at 10 o'clock on Monday. You would be very, very welcome to join us then. I hope that you had fun and sleep deep, sleep sweet. And yeah, just remember, it seems if you go by what everybody tells us, as long as your politics is right, it's fine to summon demons. Who knew? Not me. But don't try it at home, kids, and have a good one.
Cheers.
Cheers.